Seat adjustment. Welcome everyone to tonight's Wednesday night live show. I am your host, John Truncali. My co-host tonight is Mr. Tim up there. Phillip will be joining us here shortly. And joining us tonight, let me set up for this one because I went all movie on you there, Greg. And joining us tonight are Tom Hagen, the concierge of the Wednesday night live show, Mr. Greg Troutman. I can only play a 10-second clip of that because you know what'll happen to us. You know what I'm saying? We'll end up swimming with the fishes.
You know, at least you didn't say I was Fredo.
Oh, God, no. Greg, nobody wants to be Fredo.
No. Or Carlo.
Yeah, Fredo. You broke my heart, Fredo. I love the one scene where he tells everybody nobody touches Fredo until Mama dies. And I'm like, so Italian right there. Don't touch Fredo because Fredo's a mama's a boy.
That's right.
Yeah, he knew better. Welcome everybody out there to the show. We got a great show tonight. We got Greg's joining us. He's going to help us better understand what's going on in the background, not just in his case and some of the other things that are going on in the industry. Mr. Tim, do you have some news and advocacy tonight? Yes, he does. Look at that.
Yes, sure. Why not?
Yeah. Is there ever been a day where we didn't have any news and
there's always something to talk about? I mean, even if it's like some dumb shit that people want to put on Twitter or whatever, there's always something to talk about.
Always
good, bad, or otherwise. There's always something vape related we can talk about. Although, I think there's something. Well, when we get past all of the formalities and stuff, I wanted to say a little.
Yeah. Well, this is the part of the show where we find out how our week has gone, and since Greg's our guest, Greg, how is your week going?
Well, no, good so far.
Yeah.
There's still 2 more days for things to get screwed up.
Yeah.
But it's the down. You're on the you're on the down slope now, right? So hopefully it won't get any worse than it was on the upslope.
Well, the way my schedule works, it's weekends are sort of the thing that I work from home instead of from the office, so really. I work 7 days a week, just a matter of where I'm doing it. So there's no downside. There's no downhill. It's all on the same plane.
So what you're trying to say is your life is like one big Grateful Dead song. It just it just goes on forever, is what you're saying.
Correct.
Oh, well, hey, like I said before, I'll take those frequent flyer miles that you've been building up. I need a trip to Rome, so just let me know.
They make really good stocking stuffers.
Yeah. Tim wouldn't mind a few thousand miles.
It's all digital now, so there's nothing to put in a stocking.
Yeah. Just PayPal them over. No, I'm kidding. Timmy, how's your week going, buddy?
It's going well. It's work 90% of the time. The other 20% is pro bono. I feel like that's a lawyer term. You know what I mean? I'm working pro bono for the HOA. So, as spring and summer start rolling in, we've got people who want graduation banners at the front of the community. We got swimming pools that need to be drained and refilled because our chemical imbalance is completely out of whack. I mean, it's just one hit after another.
You got to put up a sign at the pool that says, "Please stop peeing in the pool."
Well, that may be the reason why I don't swim in the pool. I'm trying to whether it happens or not, I'm trying to avoid that at all costs. So you just don't take any risks to begin with, and then you're batting 1,000. So as far as I'm concerned, but it's just the usual rigmarole. Life goes on here, and you're just trying to get from one day of the week to the next day and hope that you have another day to spare on the other side of that. So can't complain. Got some things coming up, but I was recalling children's stories today. So I was talking with my girlfriend and I forget. Oh, it's because like many of you who have pets, animals, we have, our own pet names, so we come up with all this goo goo gaga talk that has absolutely nothing to do with the name of the actual animal. So I kind of make up these, whimsical words for things that they do. And it caused me to recall an old story from my childhood that my mother used to read to me. I don't know. Maybe we got some people in the crowd that know this one. Does anybody remember the story about Tiki Tiki Tembo, No Sa Rembo, Charibari Rucci, Pipberry Pembo? Does anyone remember that story?
No, not at all.
I
But my
encourage
parents
you.
were Sicilian, so
Okay, all right. So, okay, so I don't. They store bedtime stories about making pizza. Is that
yeah, pizza.
okay? Well, anyway, I encourage everyone to go take a trip into the past and read the story of Tiki Tiki Tembo, No Sa Rembo, Charibari Rucci, Pipberry Pembo. And I only say that not because you know what, it's some prophetic story, or you're not. It's not like Old Yeller. You're not going to cry or any of that shit. I'm just for the sake of the fact that you'll have to remember Tiki Tiki Tembo, No Sa Rembo, Charibari Rucci, Pipberry Pembo for the rest of your life.
Oh God. All right. I'm curious, being that your girlfriend is from another country, when you said those words, what was her reaction?
She looked at me like I had a permanent stutter.
She's like, am I sure I should be dating this guy?
I think she thought I was in full seizure mode at that moment. She was ready to shove a wallet in my mouth to keep me from swallowing my tongue. But yeah, you know, I don't know,
no more gummies for you that night.
No more gummies for me. And don't confuse that story with Ricky Tiki Tavi, the story about the mongoose. So, you know, like get your Tiki Tikis and your Ricky Tikis straight. That's what I'm saying right now. Anyway, that's been my week, John.
That's good. Yeah, I've had a good week. Work. I wish the weather would decide what it wants to do here in California. We had like 4 days of 80-degree weather, and then today it's just gloomy, cloudy, no rain. Was planning on doing some yard work, but I said screw it. I'm gonna hire someone to come and do it because I just done doing yard work. I can't deal with it anymore. And that's it. I've had a pretty good week, though. No grandkids destroying my house. I love you guys, though, if you're watching. Well, you shouldn't be watching, but if my daughter's watching, yeah, I still love you. Timmy, you know what part of the show this is, and you do your thing.
All right. Sorry, I'm multitasking, John. Okay. I'm watching the show chat because I'm just so gripped by what everybody has to say. So
yeah,
let's get into full mode. Hold on. You know what I forgot to do? I forgot to scroll up.
Greg's getting into it, man.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, this is like the Soul Train, but better. Actually, we should have a Soul Train scramble board behind us because it's got a good beat and you can dance to it. But what do you think about? Hey, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of the Wednesday Night Live Show. Yes, this edition where I pretend like I'm a radio DJ and I've got all kinds of fun, whimsical things to talk about, which I really don't. Instead, I just like to read off names and say hello to people. So let's get down to the list right out of the gate. Actually, you know what? Mallory was sneaking in the shadows, so I know she was here. She was here. She chimed in a little late, but we're going to give Rifleman the photo finish coming in straight out of the gate. Good to see you, Mr. Rifle. How are you, sir? We got Steve Todden. You know what, John? He wants to know, did you set your alarm tonight? Did you show up without an alarm, or did you need an alarm to be here on time?
I wake up at the same time every day. 1:45 p.m.
There you go. It's like Groundhog Day in John's life. Every day is the same thing over and over and over again. Steve Tottenham, great to see you, sir. How are you? Good to see you here. We got, yes, the one and only, the wonderful Mallory Gates here. Always here. Thank you for supporting us. We got Addy, Emoji King Tooney. And you know what? I was just laughing a little bit at Addy because because the YouTube chat allows you to pull back a message, like kind of like Facebook, like, you know, you can go ahead and unsend it. So Addy typed something and it says retracted message over in the YouTube chat. So I'm like, oh, what did Addy say? I had to go over it, and then and then you go to the show chat and it was pretty harmless. But anyway, I just thought that was funny. I was like, you can't get away with anything here, Addy. We're watching you. All right. Good to see you. Who else we got in here? We got Peggy at E6 Source. Always wonderful to see you, Peggy. How are you? Who else we got in here? It's we got your In the Vapor superstar guest in the chat. Superstar Jason, Community Notes Vapes. Good to see you, Jason. How are you, brother? Always wonderful to see you here. Who else we got in here? We got Daniel Barba. But you know what? I like rolling my R, so I'm going to say Daniel Barba. Okay, just because I think it sounds way freaking cooler. You know, it's not. I don't. Exactly. I don't order a burrito. I order a burrito. Do you know what I'm saying? It just sounds so much more, just rolls right off the tongue. So
if I do that at Taco Bell, I'll get laughed at.
well, just, you know what? Do it anyway. Who cares what people think, John? Don't worry about what. Exactly. You know, it's their problem if they
you mean it's not burrito?
No, it's not. It's not burrito, and it's not quesadilla either. We're not ordering quesadillas. Okay. If you want an armadillo, well, technically it should be armadillo. But anyway, if you want a quesadilla, feel free to order one.
Is that like a Phillip Mignon?
Yeah, like cinnamon. I don't know, that stuff you put in your coffee. What else? We got James R, the pirate, in the house. Good to see you, James. How are you, sir? Always wonderful to have you here. And that's it for now. I know some wonderful faces will roll in soon. But with that said, thanks for being here. Thanks for supporting the show. Love you guys.
Yeah, thank you everybody out there in chat, and always thank you to Greg for joining us. We are so lucky to have Greg on the show, and he's a busy man. I mean, he's a busy man, and taking the time for the Wednesday Night Live show and for you guys out there is awesome. And we want to start off with what you are dealing with out there in Kentucky, of course. So give us a little bit of an update on the situation there in Kentucky.
Well, we got hit with they said it was not a registry bill, but Altria was behind it. Okay, it's a registry bill.
Right.
And it was, give you the backdrop, Kentucky Smoke Free's leadership met with legislative leadership in January, sort of pre-run where things were going. And legislative leadership committed to us that they had no interest at all in doing anything vape related this year. Well, we took them at their word. Last day to file new bills, the end of February, get hit with a House bill and a Senate bill. And the Senate bill actually was worse. We're lucky that one didn't get put in, because it would have not only banned the products, it dealt with the branding and all sorts of stuff. And so we're thinking House Bill 11 has passed the House, gone to the Senate, gets assigned to a committee that hasn't met in a couple weeks. We're coming down to the late afternoon of the day before the last day of the substantive session. And this bill has not been heard in committee yet. And so we're thinking we're home free. This bill's going to die. Because anything that has to be done of substance had to be done by midnight the next night. And if it wasn't going to be heard in committee that next day, it wasn't going to pass the Senate and was going to end up dying. Well, late the afternoon of the second to last day, they announced on the floor of the Senate, oh yeah, this bill is being moved from one committee to the Judiciary Committee, which is meeting at 10 o'clock the next morning. So we had less than 12 hours notice. So we argue our case. It was already a baked deal. This cake was already baked. But in the rush to pass this, they made two critical errors. One is we have a provision in our Constitution that says a bill can only relate to one subject matter, which has to be in the title. And what that means is if it's a bill related to widgets in the title, it can't relate to widgets and whatever else in practice. Well, this was an act relating to nicotine products, but it relies on the definition of vapor products that already existed, which includes nicotine or other substances. So you see where it violates the single subject rule.
Yeah. And
had they simply passed a title amendment the last day to conform to it being a vapor, act relating to vapor products, we've got no leg to stand on. But because they didn't, then we've got a really good argument, a really good case that it violates the Constitution. And then by not taking out the or other substances provision of the vapor products definition, they backhandedly have blown up their new medical marijuana program that starts in January. Because the only products that are going to be allowed are vapable and edible. no combustible products in the medical program. Well, the definition of vapor product is obviously vaped cannabis, either hemp or marijuana, falls in that definition of vapor product.
Right.
So the second argument is that because it predicates the sale of a vapor product upon obtaining FDA market authorization, there's no FDA marketing pathway for cannabis.
Right.
So it creates, you have to comply with a non-existent pathway to be on the market. That's arbitrary.
Yeah.
And so we're arguing that it violates the due process requirements of both the state and federal constitution. So we've got really two constitutional arguments that we've got to fight here.
So why do you think they use the exemplary language or other substances? Do you think that was created to kind of put out some kind of a blanket in case we create some other kind of thing?
Exactly.
That's not quite nicotine, but it's similar in some ways?
Well, I think that they tried to rush this through. And what happens when you rush something? You don't sometimes do a good job or a complete job getting it done.
Yeah.
And quite literally, this bill passed out of Senate committee. They were going to put it on what's called the consent calendar, which means there'd be no debate. Fortunately, we got 5 senators to sign a petition which required it to go on the debate calendar.
Right.
It was not debated and voted on until like 10 o'clock in the evening. Then it has to go back to the House because the Senate amended it. Nothing that affects the constitutionality of it, but the Senate amended it. So it has to go back to the House. They passed it, and it was enrolled at 17 minutes till midnight. That's how close they were to the clock. And I think in the run-up to get this done and the rush to get this done, they didn't look at the details. And by not doing either a title amendment change or a change to the definition of vapor products so it only would apply to nicotine products, they have created something I think is unconstitutional.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't even know where to go with that. Let me ask you a quick question here, because with all these bills that are going through right now, they all seem to be similar in a way, but they're all written differently for each state, correct? There's somewhat of a difference between each one of them, but still the basis is still the same.
But there's a difference, but there's a similarity. And like, for instance, the language that I've looked at in Alabama, the Alabama law, that's the law that's currently there, and then the amendment to it or the addition to it that they're proposing at HB 65 has some of the exact same language as Senate Bill 344, which ended up dying here. And I've seen that same language in other states.
Well, they just seem like carbon copies of themselves. It's like they just mimeographed a bunch of paperwork and just sent it to every state.
And you know what's funny was one of the senators in Alabama, when he found out that the bill was 39 pages, he said the woman who sponsored it probably didn't even read 5 pages of it and probably didn't even understand 2 of them.
Yeah. Yeah, because that was what I was wondering, because it seems like there's like little changes to each one depending on how they performed in each one of the states. So if one had a harder issue getting through in a certain state, it was kind of rewritten at another state. Is that something they would usually do?
Kind of, but what they tried to do is craft these bills around the existing regulatory framework. So like definitions would be different. They would use the existing definitions in the state and then add some definitions to it. But it really is trying to work around. It's like you build an addition to your house. You don't tear the whole house down and build a new house plus the addition. You build the addition on. Now, sometimes that addition looks like crap because it doesn't match up correctly.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, I see what you're saying.
Well, it just
Go ahead,
seems
Tim.
like, no, I was going to say it just seems like an entire mess. So So if in fact the argument is valid and it's there in order to diffuse this in some way, shape, or form, what does that outcome look like? Does that just result in some formulation of an injunction? And then, then they have to go back to the drawing board and correct their language? Or does it give them a backdoor to get it right? Or can you just outright find it unconstitutional and there's no PMTA registry?
Well, there's a couple things can happen. Is the court can find the entire act unconstitutional and strike it in its entirety. If that happens, then it's null and void. Or what the court could do is a more narrow approach. The court could say, if you take out the or other substances of the existing definition, then you've got a constitutional bill.
Right.
One that saves the hemp and cannabis products, but guess what else it does? It allows us to bring in nixidine.
And that's what I meant. Is that the other substances that they're not naming anything by name, but they're like, we're going to make sure that we have a big of enough net that if they want to try to come back with something else, we'll just call that, oh, there's that other substance.
That's it. And this definition has been around since 2014, so it's not something that's new.
Yeah. And
this was, well predated the concept of synthetic nicotine, certainly nixidine. It well predates the idea of vapable cannabis. We didn't have those products in the market in 2014. But the ultimate irony here, and this is, I think, where the state might get hung, is in 2022, the state passed a floor tax on vapor products. Well, the State Department of Revenue classifies vapable cannabis products as being taxed under this tax. They've even got written guidance and everything else. So we, for at least 2 years, have had the state agency that collects taxes requiring us to pay tax on cannabis products that are vapable. And I think that's going to hurt the state. I think it is going to hurt their argument that they say, well, no, this is not the case. Well, then how come your Department of Revenue takes the position that it's taxable,
right,
and is considered a vapor product?
Do you know about what is actually going on in Ohio County?
And where?
Ohio County.
In Kentucky?
No, in Ohio County. A judge's temporary restraining order blocking the new state laws from taking effect next week that would nullify flavored vape and tobacco restrictions in Ohio cities. Franklin County Commonplace Judge Mark, I don't even know how to say that last name, also ordered a preliminary injunction hearing for May 17th.
Okay, and what I guarantee you what that has to do is because the legislature passed and the governor vetoed and they overrode his veto was state preemption. And so these are suits to preempt the local flavor bans.
Yeah,
is what I suspect it is.
Yeah,
it's very likely that the cities are going to lose those cases.
Well, I'll read a little bit of what I'm reading in the Columbus Dispatch. It just says a Franklin County judge issued a temporary restraining order late Friday afternoon, stopping a state law from taking effect next week that would prevent Columbus, several Franklin County suburbs, Cincinnati, and other Ohio cities from regulating tobacco products. The ruling means the local cities' bans on the sale of flavored tobacco products will remain in effect for now, but indicates that Franklin County Common Pleas Judge Mark Surratt, two T's at the end there,
two T's,
believes the city's case is likely to succeed. Surratt scheduled a preliminary injunction hearing in the case for May 17th. Columbus, Cincinnati, and several other Ohio cities filed a lawsuit Tuesday challenging the law created by the Republican-controlled Ohio General Assembly, arguing the legislature violated an Ohio constitutional amendment giving cities home rule to set their own laws for the good of their residents on certain matters. including on issues of public safety. The cities argue that the new Ohio law allowing flavored tobacco sales negatively affects the health of Ohioans,
Ohioans.
particularly of teens increasingly turning to vaping, which is not true.
Well, yeah, okay, that makes sense as to why they're attacking this. I know we have home rule here and have had for a long time, but we've also had a statute. This is the effect of big tobacco. This was formerly a big tobacco state.
Yeah.
We've had preemption for a long time in state law. That's why we don't have local flavor bans here.
Yeah, but I mean, it seems like you see other cases like this where basically the state government overrides the local municipalities from being able to exact their own policy on that. Only because I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that the presiding state government would much rather not allow people or neighboring cities or towns to have policies where people can just go right over the county line and just get whatever they want anyway, right? I mean, it'd be better for them to be able to regulate the whole thing instead of just having this chaos that ensues where there's no kind of blanket regulation. Although, I don't want to see any regulation at all. I'm just saying I feel like that's how they see it.
Yeah. It's whether it's a matter of public safety, that becomes a question. That's a legal question. Is this within the scope? The ultimate question will be: is this within the scope of what the constitutional amendment was intended to encompass? That's where this is going to come down. And just because you have a local court judge issues an injunction doesn't mean an appellate court will uphold it.
Right.
And it looks like the bill passed in Iowa as well.
It did.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the governor's going to do. I know that I've talked to some of the Iowa people, and there are some questions about some Commerce Clause issues and stuff like that there. So there's going to be probably litigation in Iowa.
Because basically, it look like when I read their hold on, let me pull it up here. It seems similar to all the other ones. That's why I was just kind of wondering how much difference are there between these bills from state to state.
A lot of it has to do with the existing structure of regulation. And in our instance, we've got quirks in our Constitution. The single subject requirement. They may not have that in Iowa, and their bill in Iowa may not violate that if they got it because of the way the existing structure works.
Yeah.
And like I said, that they tried to craft this around the existing structure. Well, in our case, the existing structure had something in it that wasn't compatible with what they were trying to do. They just didn't change the existing structure.
And I see they're requiring $100 annual fee, which is actually, I'm saying it's actually kind of affordable, but in a way, some companies may have, I don't know, hundreds of different flavor profiles in their, you're talking about $100 annual fee for each product listed, create a system fines for, the fines for retail and wholesale violators. I find that funny because who the hell is going to enforce that?
But here, go ahead, Greg.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think that whole sort of kind of create a system of fines for retail and wholesale violators, but you want to do that after the fact, right? So now you're gonna find the time and the resource and the money to go ahead and potentially regulate or police people who are still selling vapes when they're not supposed to, or at least ones that they're not supposed to, right? So many of these places argue that the reason why these bills are created is because they don't have the money or the resource to police what's going on at the ground level and at the vape shops. Well, and we know it's not the vape shops that are really committing most of the egregious issues. It's going to be these little head shops or these convenience stores that just don't give a damn and are just looking to make a buck. But I just find it ironic that they can't do this before the fact, right? So if part of policing it and regulating it properly is to issue fines to people who violate and sell to youth, and you can do that after the fact, then what precludes you from being able to do it now? Like, yeah, I think that would stop a lot of the shenanigans that goes on. Like, if you fine, put 100 people on the street that are all undercover and go in and try to buy stuff and see if they can get away with it, and then start slapping fines on these businesses. And I guarantee you probably won't find half the stuff getting into the hands of the kids on the street, if in fact that's where these
but that's not where the kids are getting this stuff. It's not.
Yeah, you're right.
They're not getting this stuff from vape shops. Certainly, they're not getting this stuff from. They're getting it sometimes from C stores, but not completely. And where the kids are getting this, they're ordering this online from China.
Yeah. Snapchat, friggin' Instagram. Now TikTok as well. Now,
yes, and I mean, I looked on dhgate.com one evening before I was going to go testify into a committee, and I stopped after 60 pages of looking through it because of all that was there. And these kids are ordering this stuff in bulk. There are TikTok, Snapchat, whatever they use, that are looking at, or they can go on and they can sell this stuff. The kids are buying it in bulk, taking it to school, and are selling.
Yep, entrepreneurs.
Exactly. Now, the one thing is that we do know that not all these kids are little communists or little socialists, because some of them are making money on this. But that's where the kids are getting it. And the thing is, when these are coming from these websites, Temu and DHgate and Alibaba, we don't know what in the world's in these products.
Yeah.
Well, right, but they, that's why I point out the irony here, because they can't be fools to know that the kids are getting it through back channels, right? They can't be that aloof that they don't know this.
They don't know. They really don't know.
Okay. So
they don't know.
Right. So if we know that, and we know that the kids aren't likely to get them from the C stores or the head shops or the CBD shops around the corner that are loosely monitored most of the time anyway, don't ID properly and all that other stuff. I still find the idea that they want to levy fines after the fact. I mean, then technically, I guess you could say that they were busted selling stuff illegally, but theoretically, they're still selling products illegally if, in fact, a few kids get them here. But we know that's not the problem. So I just still don't seem to understand why they want to try to shut it down, because the back door is always open.
Well, but if you look at the raw numbers of what kids are getting and what kids they're bringing, they're coming into these hearings and they're bringing bags of disposables that they've seized from kids. There's no way in the world that kids are getting that quantity of vapes from C stores. There's just way too many of them.
Right.
They've got to be getting them from another source.
Right. And knowing kids today, they're not paying what they're paying at the regular vape shops. I mean, if I'm walking in and I'm, and I still find it reasonable given the levity of the situation. But I mean, if I'm paying $20 a pop for a disposable, and I buy 4, that's $80 right there. I highly doubt most kids have $80 in their pocket to just regularly run in and buy 4 vapes at a time. I mean, they're finding bags of these things. So it means that they're getting them for, pennies on the dollar.
And the fact is, if you're the kids that's selling these things, you've got money that you can buy stock. And you're going to make money off that stock. You're going to have more money to buy more stock. And it's a business proposition for the kids. And, call it what it is. And I will absolutely call it what it is. This is laid at the feet of FDA. because this market we've got right now is the result of FDA's failed policies.
Yeah.
I mean, when did disposables become a thing?
They've been a hot item for a while now. I would say at least. I would say
you go back to Juul.
I mean, yeah, you start there.
But Juul was not a disposable.
It wasn't a disposable, but it's still considered to many as the starter.
The Elf bars, the Escobars, those kind of products, those true disposables.
Yeah.
You did not see those on the market before January of 2020, when FDA banned the sale of the flavored pods.
Yeah.
Okay. That and what these people did is they came out with you can't blame them. I mean, they're entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
They wanted to make a buck, good. But they came out with the disposable synthetic because synthetic was not regulated in 2020. And that was in response to FDA's misstep.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you. Okay, Congress is going after the FDA. Congress is telling them to get something done. Everybody else they're yelling at everyone. How come no one is pushing? How come Congress or the president isn't pushing for the blockage of these products coming in? I mean, I don't know what they call Border Patrol or not. I don't know what they call those people that take care of freight that's coming in, because you don't hear of that here in the U.S. Now, we've heard stories like in the UK and other countries where freight has been stopped and seized, but we don't see that here in the U.S. Well, how come Congress isn't pushing for some sort of extra money to make sure that these products aren't coming in illegally?
Well, like in the UK, you've got a lot fewer ports in the UK to have to monitor.
Yeah.
I mean, look how many ports of entry we have in the United States.
Yeah.
A ton. And these are all coming from China.
Customs. I'm sorry. That's right, Andy.
Customs and Border Patrol, CBP. These products are all coming in from China. And as soon as the customs people get wise and start interdicting shipments, because we've heard of shipments being interdicted, they rebrand and they change it to some other name. So it's not on the import alert. And so they are 5 steps ahead of FDA and customs.
Yeah.
And I guarantee you the Chinese already have 3 generations down the road of branding names ready to roll out. And everything ready to go. That they are so far ahead of us. We are so slow to the uptake on this.
But Greg, not even one.
Huge bureaucracies.
You would think there would be at least one bust that we would see, just at least one. I mean, even with all the ports of entry into the U.S., you figured they would at least get one, so they can do that big showboat where they put all the shit on the table and say, look at us, look what we did. This is what we stopped, but you don't even see that here. We haven't even seen one bust.
You have to ask the legitimate question, is this intentional?
Yeah.
And when I say, is it intentional, this helps drive a narrative. This helps drive a desired narrative. And if the sales to kids dry up, the narrative dries up.
Yeah. I don't know, Steve. Are there nicotine trained dogs? I'm sure they can be trained to smell nicotine.
I don't know. But, the thing is, and also, too, in fairness, how much different kind of stuff comes through all the different ports of entry every day? How much are they having to keep an eye out on? And the fact is, do we want them to devote their full attention to this, and maybe in the process they ignore drugs coming in, or they ignore other contraband stuff coming in that's more harmful?
Yeah.
It's a priority. It's a matter of priorities. And again, I'll lay the fault of this at FDA's feet.
Yeah.
It has gotten the market that we have. FDA has gotten the market that its policies show that it deserves.
Yeah, it says dogs can be trained to detect nicotine. So there you go. Customs agents start training those German shepherds to smell out that synthetic nicotine. Tim, you're muted, but you sound amazing.
Sorry, just sparing everybody from the mouths of very short babes. But you'd think we could throw the there you go. That's
good
see,
baby.
that one's awfully quiet. So I would prefer that one right now over what I have to listen to in the moment. But you would think that we could throw the dogs off a little bit with all of that wonderful fruit and dessert flavor smells. You know, that somehow they're just duped on the idea that they just think that it's full of
it's just cheesecake,
baked goods and candies and things of that nature. Like, dog just kind of like nothing here,
nothing here, nothing.
No, I have to believe that there's probably some stuff that goes on in the background to some degree where somebody's paid a little bit to let things through. Oh, we didn't check that container. Whatever. Yeah, they can't possibly check every container coming in off of a ship. I mean, if you've ever seen,
let's ask Tony. Tony, your thoughts?
No, Tony would have hijacked everything.
Yeah, but like Mallory said, 90% of it still gets through, and I'm not saying that that's all purely intentional, but I mean, when you think about, they probably look at documentation first to just see what's in the container to begin with, and then certain things will raise flags greater than others, right? You can't possibly scrutinize every container rolling off a ship. I mean, there's just thousands of these things coming off ships at a time.
Oh God, yeah.
I mean, it's like random selection. It's like going through the airport. Where you're like, yeah, everything's fine. Like, oh shit, why did I get pulled aside in the causeway to get looked at? Like, what? You didn't do anything. Your number got picked, and that's really what it boils down to. And so, the stuff that they do find is probably predicated on a lot of luck sometimes. Because you're not going to fill containers full of the same thing. You're going to disguise it in and amongst other things, right? So it's going to be like, oh, it's a container full of furniture or rugs, but somewhere down deep in the center, there's 50 cases of disposables in there. So
oh no, I mean, I have been to the Oakland Port of Entry several times when I was driving truck to drop off some trailers, and you'd be amazed how many trailers are sitting on those ships and that are sitting on the ground there. It would be absolutely madness trying to just go eeny, meeny, miny, moe and try to pick one out. But you would I find it funny that every other country has that moment where they have all, the table full of fucking narcotics, or the table full of counterfeit bills, and you're just boasting that we did this, we did that, and we stopped this from coming in. But yet we've never seen one single raid or stop by customs here in the U.S. So I just find it funny that every other country has this moment, but yet we have such a problem here with black market vapes, but yet we've never seemed to have that. I'll take like 20 cases. Like, oh my God, we stopped 20 cases of disposal. I mean, all right, great. All right. But absolutely nothing. And I just find it funny that customs has never come up in Congress or the House or the president about somehow trying to figure out a way to stop this.
Right. Because certainly they would want to sort of, puff out their chest a little bit. You're right. Like, if you're going to do all this stuff, and you're going to shut it down, and you claim that, that's where all that the problem, or one of the biggest problems, is the illegal Chinese vapes. You would think they would revel in the idea that they could display to everyone that, like, look at what we're stopping at the ports coming in. And you're right. We haven't seen any of that. Now, we have seen a couple quote unquote raids on,
shop owners
or private properties, that were storing the stuff or something like that, because they were following a lead, or, somebody snitched and said this and that was happening. But no AK-47s and 20 cases of vapes laid on laid out on a card table, right?
Look at the force that they sent into Diddy's house. I mean,
Yeah.
that is sheer nonsense. This is a public figure. You send FBI, DEA, you send who else in there? There was like 6 different agencies that raided that guy's house. And we have money for that, but we don't have money to upgrade customs to make sure that these disposables don't come in. Give me a break, man.
And I'll tell you, and I'll go there with this. The optics of that was, talk about tone deaf. And here's where I'm going with it. Biden's people, they are shedding votes in the African American community.
Yeah.
The last person they need to be going after right now is a prominent African American.
Yeah, that's for sure.
How to lose an election without even trying. And like him or not, I couldn't tell you a thing P. Diddy sings.
Me either.
Whatever he does, but there's a lot of people who follow him.
Yeah.
And are very loyal to him. The closest I've ever come to P. Diddy was I saw his yacht sitting out in the bay at Santorini one time when I was there. And they were taking a pizza out to him.
Domino's.
No, it was a local. It was a local pizza place there at the wharf at Santorini, and they were taking a little tender out there, little motorboat out there, taking him his pizza.
Yeah, I was saying that they seem to find the money for the thing that suits their interest at the time.
Yeah.
And they've got this whole vape war all completely upside down and backwards. And I just don't understand the ignorance of the idea to go ahead and just find a pathway to regulate this within reason and just let the safer markets have a way of getting products to their customers. You can keep an eye on it. You can have whatever list you want, so that you can see, what's coming in and what's going out. But they would much rather shut the whole thing down. Hey, Michelle, they would shut down the safer route and then somehow ruse us into believing that they can control the illegal shit that's flying around.
Yeah.
Well, the mistake they made was they let the industry get too big.
Yep.
And it got so big so quick that it's beyond their capacity to control it or even corral it now. You've heard the expression herding cats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is the whole colony.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that's their fault. They had an opportunity. We were willing to sit down and deal with it, and we were willing to have some regulations that were, reasonable at the time, but yet they just found different ways to go after us, and us being as resourceful as we are, we started finding loopholes, and then they started changing laws, and we'd find another loophole. And it seems like that's all we've been doing for like the last 8-9 years is they come up with a law, we find a loophole. They come up with another law, we find a loophole. And it's just like, it's their fault.
Well, and to their credit, and I can't say too much now about this, but I'll give you some breadcrumbs. I know that on the Hill right now, there are some prominent folks that are deeply concerned about where things are going. They see the handwriting on the wall. They see that Chevron is getting ready to probably go away, the deference standard, which is really why FDA's gotten away with what it's gotten away with, is the courts have simply said, okay, you're the agency, you're the experts, we're going to defer to you. Well, if deference goes away and they actually have to justify what they're doing to a court, and a court can look behind the curtain and say, okay, I see what you're really doing here, and no go anymore. And then we've got these multitude of cases now at the Supreme Court with the Triton decision and the posture it's in, which could be a bloodbath for FDA. I mean, I could see this Supreme Court taking FDA to pieces if they take these cases.
Yeah.
And so they're being pragmatic. They recognize that we're not far removed from the Supreme Court blowing this whole thing up. And there becomes at that point really no meaningful regulatory pathway. We need to get out in front of this. And they're reaching out to their credit, they're reaching out to the industry to help craft what reform should look like.
Okay. Quick question for you, because what we've been also noticing, just outside of the U.S., but some countries jumping on board with bans. How much of that do you think is our doing with the situation we're having here? Like now, I guess I'm going to say this: Kakistan. Is that how I say? Is that the proper way?
Kyrgyzstan.
Yeah.
Kyrgyzstan. Yeah. I mean, is this the WHO or the WHO? I always say that, and I always get fucking. Yeah, no, Tim, it's not the band. The WHO.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what Pete Townsend and Roger Daltrey know about tobacco control.
Oh, they know. They know. They know another substance control.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, they probably now it's probably Geritol for them. They're all over 80.
Well, yeah. They would still tour and still get $800 a ticket.
Yeah, when Pete Townsend wrote the lyric, "I hope I die before I get old," I don't think he was anticipating living to be in his 80s.
No, he wasn't.
So, it's part of the WHO. That's a good part of it. And, in some places, the tobacco industry is so ingrained with the government that, they go hand in hand.
Yeah, 46% male smoking rate there. That is fucking insane, man.
Yeah.
That is insane. That's what kind of blows me away. And we talked about that here on the show. If you're going to ban something, Tim's brought it up, Phillip has brought it up many times, but you're going to ban something, replace it with something else that's going to help either be less harmful for whoever's trying to stop using whatever you're trying to ban. But yet this is a country that has, they don't have any other resources available to the person that is trying to quit smoking.
And you've got to wonder, if the big tobacco companies had invented this technology, would we be having all these problems right now?
No, not at all. I don't think so. I don't think so at all.
And I think a lot of it is a matter of pride, is that these tobacco companies, because we know this, these tobacco companies have tried to come up with this technology for a long, long time. And it took a Chinese pharmacist and a bunch of ragtag ex-smokers to perfect it.
Yeah.
They can't allow that.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing too. I mean, with the WHO, I mean, that's what they're about. They're about making, preserving health and in these countries and making sure people live longer. But yet they're forcing these countries to ban this product that we know is safer, but yet offer nothing in return. They're not offering a different solution to quitting smoking. So it's just like, hey, don't vape, but go ahead and keep smoking. We're okay with that until something else comes. Because I don't know how readily available patches are in this country, or any other products that we may have here are available there. And is this a type of people that, because I know that like Italians, they're like, they would look at the beginning, they looked at this product like, this is stupid. You're not a man. You're not smoking. You're not a man. What are you doing this for? And I'm going to assume that this country,
you're a fanook.
Yeah, what are you doing? What is that? Put that there. What are you, a woman? So I'm assuming that this country is the same way, but yet they're no, do they have the patches? Do they have the gums? Do they, I'm sure they don't believe in hypnosis there. I'm sure they don't, because I'm thinking it's a Muslim state, isn't it? I think it might be.
Tajikistan?
Yeah.
I think it's, but I don't know if it's more secular, like Jordan maybe, or if it's, hardcore like Iran. I don't know.
Yeah. So that's my grief. And I don't understand why no one ever goes after the WHO for that reason and saying, sure, okay, you want to ban this stuff? That's fine. But give these people something else that if it's not vaping, then find me something. Before you go and ban something, find out if there's something else out there that is going to be as safer or as safe as vaping, and then go ahead and do your ban, Well, but just banning something is ridiculous.
you have to ask yourself look at the size of the anti-tobacco mechanism in the world.
Yeah.
And there's a huge infrastructure there. How many people does WHO employ that are devoted to anti-tobacco efforts?
Yeah.
And how much money is that? They don't want to lose that. They want that funding. It's a power source. The people that are running those operations, they don't want to give up that power.
Yeah. No, it just seems sort of lopsided in the sense that they try to take away all the alternatives for somebody. So it's obvious that, and who's going to start believing the WHO for very much longer anyway? I mean, if you pay any attention to X at all, I mean, the WHO seems to be at every turn getting a community note. So I hope that, that provides some actual information for people to kind of see how, they try to pull the wool over everyone's eyes, and then sort of, flippantly kind of pretend like they're really trying to do something about combustible tobacco, and saving lives that way. It seems like vaping, let's get rid of it, ban it. But, you people are smoking. Well, hey, now's a good time to quit. Call this number and listen to some yucca-puck, read some piece of paper to you and tell you, ideas or things that you can do to quit that's not going to prove to be effective in any way, shape, or form. The person can be like, well, I thought I was going to be able to call this number and get some actual help.
Right.
But all you're doing is just sending me to some pamphlet somewhere.
Yeah. I'm going to correct my numbers here. 17.9%.
I'm here.
Yeah. Okay. He's mixing his drink. 17% Christian, 69.3% Muslim. So I was right. It's mostly a Muslim state. So they're not going to believe in hypnosis and all that other stuff. And you're not going to, it's insane.
I had to get up and walk a bit. One of my feet was going to sleep.
You got to slap it.
His watch told him to get up and move around like my watch. I looked down at my watch. I'm like, what? I'm not exercising because you say so.
It wasn't that. It was my foot was going to sleep, and I could feel it. So I got to get up and walk around a little bit and shake it.
There you go. And then you get this pins and needles thing shooting, and you can't move. You can't move.
I don't think you and the viewers want to watch me doing the hokey pokey in the middle of
I did that the other day, and I dragged my foot for like 3 minutes. I just didn't want to move, and I just walking in the kitchen dragging my right foot like I was 100 years old, man. And then, like you said, then the pins and needle thing starts, and I'm like, son of a bitch.
Yeah. So John, are we at liberty to talk about a bit of what Allie experienced in South Carolina?
The next on my list.
I was just, I figured I'd backtrack to some messaging that she gave us about a week or so ago, which led up to the hearing that she's a part of this week, and she couldn't be on the show. But she was, as everyone knows, Allie, is with the AVM. So, she obviously is on the front lines of fighting all of the retribution that was coming down the South Carolina pike. Because she's been involved with e-cig Charleston for a long time. So she messaged us, and she said, and I'll read her exact words.
Yeah.
In quotes, she says, "Update: South Carolina is so fucked." It started off that way, so we instantly knew that it was bad news, right? She says, "What my lobbyist sent me after we left the State House today after the hearing. We have a scheduled subcommittee hearing tomorrow at 9 a.m. We have been told they are moving the bill to full committee with a yes vote. We have been told there are options for amendments at both the subcommittee and full committee process. The big tobacco crowd was meeting with the members of the sub minus Leber. I guess that's a representative. When we left the building at 5:30, we were told they're going to try and work towards some semblance of a compromise from their side, as they know where we stand and what we're looking for. The AG's office is supportive of the bill as is, and helped write the bill and signed off on it being introduced. We have an uphill battle in terms of convincing members that AG and DHEC, Department of Health, I guess that's Charleston, other health office should run the registry. The argument for T21 is that it requires a constitutional amendment. To be very clear, this is not a decision that was made by the subcommittee. They were given this order from the top of the food chain. We are working to make sure the bill changes in some way that is positive for us. So that's what she's been involved in, because they're trying to get the bill amended so that there's some compromise. I think they were really shooting for T21 in South Carolina, but apparently I guess that's a whole other process. They have to get another bill passed through, and it requires an amendment. So wishing Allie all the luck in the world as they fight that, and hopefully they come back with some good news.
She's meeting with them tomorrow, right?
I believe so. Yes, she said it was on Thursday. Yeah, Thursday. So hopefully they can get some things worked up there. And then the thing I wanted to talk about at the beginning of the show, and then this is just resonant of all the things that we talk about on this show, specifically because we're all in this advocacy fight together. No matter what it is you do that centers around the industry, whether you're directly related to it, whether you're a shop owner. We've had shop owners on here before. John's going to get some more Rolaids, everyone. He's got he's older now like me, so we do get some acid indigestion. No, I know he's not going to get Rolaids. But we talk fervently about ways that we can stand up and fight and speak out. We had shop owners on here a few weeks ago talking about the struggles that they face with the regulations that are coming down and the challenges that are compromising their business. But I don't think he's on the show right now. He does stop in and say hello quite often. I'm sure everyone's very familiar with Mr. Mark Sliss. And I just I saw some very sad and disappointing news this past week that the area in which he resides, his government basically put him into a position that after 10 years of business and standing tall for the vape community, standing in front of legislators and in front of government to argue on behalf of vaping and the good that's come from it, and his fight to get people away from smoking, that after 10 years he's been forced to close his doors, which I just it's just a shame to see people who are fighting for the greater good and doing wonderful things to help others realize the success we've had with vaping and what it's meant for our quality of life post smoking, and then to see such a good guy like that, a guy who has all the best intentions in the world, have to lose his livelihood. And with that, he said that he didn't feel that he was going to be able to advocate in the same way that he had done before. So if you're familiar with Mark, my heart goes out to him and his family. He's a great guy and doesn't deserve this. None of us deserve this.
None of it. Yeah.
And actually, if it wasn't for Mark, the Michigan industry wouldn't even be here right now if it wasn't for Mark.
Yeah.
Yep.
Winning that lawsuit a few years ago was huge. And what's interesting, and the ultimate irony of this is Michigan may be one of the places that we get legislation passed that's sort of the model for what, we're thinking about we need in DC.
Yeah. Timmy, you have news and advocacy, my friend?
Sure, why not? Let's read some news and advocacy.
Yeah, I'm sorry, everybody. I couldn't find a feel-good story. Maybe I'll look around a little bit and find one, but I couldn't find it.
And you know what? We've got some wonderful people that watch the show. If you guys have a pay it forward, feel-good story that you're aware of, that that might be through your channels or something like that, you can share the article with John. Just maybe John will read your article.
Yes.
We always like to see good things come from
somewhere.
somewhere in all situations and scenarios. I mean, you can't, you got to be completely closed off to the world. And this is, I'm not talking about vaping, specifically. I'm just saying, we live in a rather tumultuous time. We all just want to get up and have a good day and come home and eat dinner and sit down and not be, bothered by the world too much. And it just seems
all right, Tim, I have one. I'm going to let you do it.
okay.
I'm putting it in the chat.
Okay, hold on. Let's see.
Actually, it just came up, so I think it's a good story, and it's a state story, United States story. So,
okay, hold on. Let me drag this sucker over to the other screen here. Hold on, it's loading. It's loading. Oh, you know what I did? I saw this on X the other day. Yeah,
I
so
did too.
let me
share this.
play Ali's bumper.
Yeah, go for it.
Tell me that you love me, yeah. Tell me something good.
I love that song.
I feel so inspired. I just I don't know. I feel like Ali right now. Anyway,
you don't look like Ali, but you could feel like Ali. You're nowhere near.
She might give me a run for my money on the hair department, but I don't look. I'm not as nearly attractive as Ali, so I will just do my best with the looks that God gave me to try to read this article and the positive light that Ali would do it. So let's share a screen. Yeah, this one came up on X, and this is something that you love to see community come together in these particular situations because these are life or death situations, right?
Yeah.
Too many times we see people. What do, John? Instead of helping, what do they do?
They look away.
Well, they don't necessarily look away. I mean, maybe yes, a little bit, but they love to pull out their phones.
Yeah,
everyone loves to pull out their phones and film the tragedy happening in front of their eyes, but no desire to actually step in and help. I don't understand that. I don't understand why people take a back seat. So the title was "Dramatic Video Shows Strangers Desperately Fighting to Remove Man from Car Engulfed in Flames and Succeeding." So it says on I-94 in Minnesota, a team of Good Samaritans and highway rescue personnel banded some. When they need a new good copy editor in the world. I'm telling you,
Tim is available.
I will not work pro bono.
No.
But I if you want to pay me respectfully, I would be happy to have fixed that for you, so you didn't have to put it out to the world and cause me to maybe read that Band-Aid. Okay. Rescue personnel banded together to save a stranger trapped unconscious inside a burning car. Simply incredible dash camera footage shows 5 or 6 people pulling over and leaping out of their cars after an SUV runs off the highway and bursts into flames. They fail in their team effort to open the doors as the flames rise, but a member of the Minnesota Department of Transportation's Freeway Incident Response Safety Team, can they fit all those words on the side of an emergency vehicle?
I was just going to say
that's like that. It's like that football player, like with the really extraordinarily long last name, and it takes up 2 lines on the back of his shirt.
No, what's the acronym? What's the acronym? TIF.
Oh my God, MDTFIRST.
Yeah, no.
Minnesota Department of Transportation's Freeway Incident Response Safety Team, formerly here. You could have just stuck with this. Formerly called the Highway Helper.
Not much easier.
They could have. I could have ordered. I could have ordered the really fancy Starbucks coffee. But instead they could have just stuck with Highway Helper. Maybe they were just thinking that sounds too much like Hamburger Helper.
That's what I was thinking.
And people will make fun of us.
All 3 of us are sharing a mind right now because we were all thinking Hamburger.
Yeah,
Helper.
Did anybody get the beef stroganoff Highway Helper? That's really good.
Everybody came. All the people that worked it came out with those big white gloves on.
Yeah, exactly. arrived in time to smash the window glass and pull the man out to safety. It all started when 71-year-old Sam Orbovich lost consciousness behind the wheel of his Honda. When color and motion returned to his vision, the highway helper had smashed the glass. I'm alive today because several good Samaritans and professional first responders saved my life. Orbovich said of the Thursday night incident, it is incredibly heroic when people driving down the highway choose to put themselves at risk by running toward the flames to extract a stranger from a burning car that could explode at any moment. The doors were unlocked but blocked from opening by the highway guardrail. Team efforts to bend the rail out far enough away from the doors failed, as did one man's effort to put out the fire with an extinguisher and another attempt to break the window. Orbovich suffered minor injuries, and the footage has gone viral. The State Patrol is grateful that the driver is okay due to the heroic actions of the individuals who stopped to help. Lieutenant Jill Frankfurth told the Star Tribune, the actions of those who pulled this motorist from the burning car demonstrates the importance and willingness of people throughout Minnesota looking out for each other. We are thankful everyone remains safe. And really, isn't that the moral to the story? The moral to the story is that, you know, we don't have to all be best friends. We don't all have to hang out at each other's house. We don't all have to loan each other $1 million. But if you know anybody that wants to loan me $1 million, I'll take it. No, it's about looking out for each other. You know what I mean? You don't, we just being good people. There's nothing wrong with being good people and stepping in and helping your fellow man. So
that's it. That's it.
Look at the picture of the folks in action there.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
It's a diverse group of people.
Yep, exactly. I mean, there's no judgment going on. There's absolutely no criticisms or predispositions. It's like, hey, let's save somebody's life. Let's get in here, you know, because I would want someone to save my life if I was in that predicament.
And you know, all we hear is, you know, we're a racist country, we're, you know, a bigoted country. Well, you look at that picture, and really, we're not.
Nope.
Big misnomer.
Life is a life. A life.
But the government's racist. They want to take away menthol cigarettes.
Those bastards.
And that's racist.
That's racist.
All right. So
again, back to the point I made earlier. The Biden administration, they're shedding votes in the African American community. So what do? Well, let's do things to piss off the African American community. Really smart, guys. Really smart.
Yeah,
not too good thinking. All right, so let's get into some advocacy here. If you really want the mecca of advocacy, I would
hold on, buddy.
Yeah.
We can't do that without this. Hello, California.
That song just makes you want to get up in front of the mirror and headbang with your tennis racket and your hairbrush and just lip sync till the cows come home, because you know I don't have any actual musical talent. So, but yeah, let's talk about some advocacy. And I would say, if you really want the mecca of advocacy, I direct your attention to the CASA website, where I believe I read it on X the other day. There are actually 32 calls to action right now on the CASA website, driven by consumer advocates, much like ourselves. And if you are unsure of what's going on in your state, or you're not clear on it now, head on over there and check it out, because there's a ton of stuff going on. And, you know, just, you know, help out any way you can. So let's talk about... Let's see, what do I want to talk about? All right, let's talk about this one. Let's talk about some good stuff, right? Because I mean, it's so easy to find all the bad stuff. So I got a couple good ones outside of the WHO getting community noted. That's always good. And sloppy Tahir Turk showing a picture of, I think, what probably was somebody taking a creative photo of their vape in the woods, and then and it was a mech mod at that. Yeah. And then he used that as his argument to say that, we lobby for all this vaping, but we don't care about just the constant waste that's going on and stuff that's just thrown on the street, and and all that other stuff. When he's way off base on that.
You mean like cigarette butts?
Kind of, yeah. So like he likes to use the whole, well, the disposable vapes that are just, have you seen the pictures of the disposable vapes that they find at the beach just thrown in the sand? I'm like, you know what? Dig your toes in the sand to here. You can probably find about 10 or 15 cigarette butts while you're at it.
Oh yeah.
First of all, most people who use disposables, I would love to have a way to properly recycle these. I would do that if I had an option for it. I would like to see more vape shops offer some kind of a recycling program, because a lot of times that's where we procure these. And so what are my options at that point when this thing is done? I'm not going to go throw it in the curb. I'm not going to go throw it in the sand at the beach, but I'm going to throw it in the trash. And that's no better than anything else. So I would love to see vape shop owners who are, selling these disposables to offer an incentive program to recycle these things, or, talk to your county. We just had a recycling bin put up at our local park, not for lithium batteries, not for disposables, for cardboard and paper and stuff like that, which is great. But I'd like to see more of that, and then we can dispel that whole myth, right? Who make it nondescript? Just put a dumpster somewhere and just call it vape disposable, vape recycling or something. And then what? You're gonna find some dumpster diver who's in there hitting a bunch of friggin' burn out disposables that everybody vaped until they were getting dry hits. At any rate, so let's share screen. Let's go with here. This.
Well, that's good to know, Mallory. I had no idea.
What did she say? Home Depot. Oh, really? Okay. Well, I've got a Home Depot, not even 2 miles from my house, and I have to go there quite often. So if they've got them, I'm gonna check into it, because they do they don't care that it's a vape so much. It's more about lithium battery recycling.
Yeah, the battery. Yeah.
Okay, I got you. All right, so handing out vapes in emergency rooms could save thousands of lives, which we know in the UK, they kind of already do this kind of stuff, right? They have vape shops within the hospitals for people who have been told, hey, look, switch to vaping. Could do some good for you. Too bad not enough doctors would support something like this, at least in the US. But handing out free vapes in emergency rooms to people who smoke could save thousands of lives in the United Kingdom, according to researchers who trialed this approach. The researchers from the University of East Anglia, the UEA, conducted their trial in 6 emergency departments in England and Scotland, including the Royal London Hospital, Leicester Royal Infirmary, and Addenbrooke's Hospital in Cambridge. Regardless of participants' reasons for attending the departments, those who said they smoked were offered vape starter kits, cessation advice, and a referral for cessation services, or else for the control group, they were just given contact details for local cessation services. Participants smoking was then assessed after 1, 3, and 6 months using a carbon monoxide test. Dr. Ian Pope of the UEA Norwich Medical School, a co-author of the study, explained that the group given vapes had a significantly higher rate of abstinence from smoking after 6 months compared to the control group. I would love to know what options they had within these kits. I wonder if they were able to go down and they said, well, what do you like? Do you like fruit?
Oh, yeah.
Do you like dessert? Do you like tobacco flavors? Like, I would be curious to know. I can't imagine that they just said, here's just a run-of-the-mill tobacco vape, and it worked for. I mean, if you're going to get significantly higher abstinence success rates out of this, then you the person needs to have an experience or a relative experience to help them disassociate from it. So I will always argue the point that for some, maybe going right to tobacco vapes as a transitional method would be helpful. I think that those help people in some ways. I would just think the average person would like something a little bit more flavorful, tasty, more pleasant than a reminder of what it is they're trying to get rid of in the first place. There are a number of reasons emergency departments could be particularly potent places to offer people vapes. Of 488 people in the control group, 4.1% had quit smoking after 6 months. Good for them. And who says that vaping can't be used as a cessation tool? How many times have we heard, oh, you're just trading one addiction for another? Okay, well, clearly if you've got a 4.1 quit smoking rate out of the 488 people, I think that sets a pretty good example that several people could cessate. And then we can talk about whether or not nicotine's a bad thing after that, right?
Yeah.
Among 484 participants in the vape group, 7.2% had quit, a rate that was 76% higher. There are a number of reasons accident and emergency departments, as they are known in the UK, could be particularly potent places to offer people vapes. Providing smoking cessation support in the emergency departments should be considered to reach groups of the population that may not routinely engage with stop smoking services, but have the most to gain from stopping smoking. Now, so I would ask a question at this point. Do you think that this includes any component of the said pregnant community, women who are going in to hospitals? Well, these are emergency rooms, so it's a little bit different. They're not quite
it's not a full clinical setting.
Right.
I don't know what their methodology was here. Who are they exactly are they trying to reach? I mean, certainly people who come into an ER, it depends on what they're coming in for, and what's going on as to why you would want to have a interdiction at that point.
Yeah,
well, I mean, I can't say that I'm aware of too many instances where people who are just due to smoking necessarily end up in an emergency room unless they're having issues with COPD or they're emphysema or they're having an attack or something like that. But it could be that, when they go into the emergency room, maybe they were randomly selected. Maybe they went in for a broken foot and they filled out the questionnaire and they said, do you smoke, or yes or no? And they look at that sheet and go, well, they admit that they're a smoker. Let's put them on the trial and see if they're willing to participate in something like that.
Yeah.
It's a good way to find study participants.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But I mean, again, for me, this is just evidence of the fact that vaping is successful and has a very high success rate when offered to people. Now, why didn't these people find vaping on their own? I mean, it's the UK, right? I mean, they don't really have too many restrictions on it in the first place, other than TPD and maybe some of the issues where they have to add their own nicotine to their e-liquid. I could see that being daunting to a person if they said, hey, what's this whole thing with this vaping thing? And then somebody said, well, you just got to go buy this tank and these coils and this mod, and then you need to buy the flavors, and then you can say what kind of nicotine you want. I'm sure at some point it would be like my parents and a VCR. They're like, oh, we don't want anything. We don't want anything to do with that VCR. That just sounds like it's, friggin' HAL, the computer, right? Providing smoking cessation support in the emergency departments should be considered to reach groups of the population that may not routinely engage with stop smoking services, but have the most gain from stopping smoking. Breaking the cycle, right? Hey, why should I switch to something else? I like my cigarettes, right? People living in deprived areas of the UK are much more likely to attend A&E than people from wealthier areas. People on low incomes are also much more likely to smoke. Well, that could have been a criteria too. I don't know. That's judgmental, but okay, whatever. The researchers say that rolling out their approach could result in more than 22,000 extra people quitting smoking each year. And then there are the sheer numbers. In England alone, about 45,000 people visit A&E every single day. An additional 25,000 visit associated walk-in services for minor injuries. Extrapolating from the findings of their study, the researchers say that rolling out their A&E approach could result in more than 22,000 extra people quitting smoking each year, when about half of the people who smoke long-term will die of smoking-related causes. The implications are huge, and that's just in the UK. This goes on for a bit. I don't know. Well, we're almost done. So the time people spend in emergency departments represents an opportunity, Pope said, where patients can be empowered to change their behavior and improve their health. I think that's enough. I mean, it would be great.
Right.
It would be great if the United States would take the chance of offering this type of pathway to people. But we already know that that pathway has been damaged enough, because the same people that should be offering this to people as a pathway out and away from smoking are the same yucca-pucks who will tell you it's worse than smoking. So
well, but by the same token, if you look at England or the United Kingdom, who pays for the medical care there versus who pays for it here?
well, the private versus public, right? I mean, basically, with a public healthcare system, they have an explicit agenda to serve the people. I mean, they're paying for it. They're people are paying into that system, and they don't have the same controls and restrictions that a private healthcare system like ours do, where they want your money.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's what doesn't make sense to me is like, wouldn't you want us to live longer so we continue to pay premiums? I mean, that would be a bit, that should oversee the cost of actually taking care of someone with cancer, I think, because if someone's living 20, 30 years longer, they're paying into healthcare. You would assume that would be better than the alternative, dying at 45, 50, 60 years old and, pretty much end of deal.
I'll have to look into that.
You're talking about the World Health Organization. They are part of that idea of depopulation.
Yeah. And,
we know, you said a minute ago, 50% of people who smoke long-term die prematurely.
Yeah.
And, that's kind of, it's a sad and sick way to look at it, but that's kind of what they're gunning for.
Yeah. Sick.
I'd have to look into that one, Jeffrey. I didn't see that one. I mean, obviously we endorsed the Cochrane, the Cochrane, whatever the other part of their name is, the Cochrane Library, excuse me.
Library,
right. And what I appreciate about the Cochrane Library is they're a non-biased organization, right? So they don't do anything that causes conflict of interest. They don't take, so I'm just trying to get the gist of exactly in India. It said, who's giving out the grants? The Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids, or the Cochrane Library. I'll have to look into it. I'm very curious now to read this one, so I want to go check that one out. I will do that one later because I have time now. Anyway, but I would love to see these trials done in the US. It would just be good, because then we could actually have some data that could be presented to say that these types of programs would help people to quit smoking. But the doctors don't want that. What's the meme say, John? The meme says a person cured is a customer lost.
Yep.
There's no profit in the cure.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's no profit.
Yeah, where I'm reading that certain drugs to treat particular instances like cancer and things of that nature can cost people, unless you have insurance, which we know runs out at some point. I mean, they can't keep continuing to pay like $16,000, a week or something. The drugs cost that, I mean, that's just insane. And the only reason that came up is I was talking about that Martin Shkreli thing where he inflated the cost of that one drug by like 750% Daraprim. Just nuts. Absolute nuts. Anyway, so there's
my dad was paying almost $2,500 a month on dementia medicine. $2,500.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I mean, I know that some of us are fortunate to have health care and insurance through work, and they offer some padding, here and there, but there's just not that many people in this world that are that fortunate as well. I mean, they're screwed. Get them continuing to smoke drives them into a health situation where they basically end up dying broke, more than broke, in debt. It doesn't make any sense. Make it make sense, people. All right, so I got one more. We got some time. Let's look at this one. This one was a pretty good one. Bear with me while I accept all cookies.
Accept the cookies.
And I do quite figuratively and literally accept all cookies.
Yeah.
Chocolate chip or oatmeal.
Rocky Road. To be
no walnuts though. I want no walnuts.
Actually, my put my girlfriend on a pedestal again. She came home bearing 4 crumble cookies about a week ago. If anyone knows about crumble cookies,
You know.
If you don't,
If you know,
if you don't
you know.
know, if you know, you know. If you don't know,
Don't
you
know.
need to know. Look up Crumble. That's spelled Crumbl. There's no E.
Always a teacher.
Crumble cookies. I tell you
And
what.
if you don't know now, you know.
Now you know.
And now
That's-
you do, right? So don't say I never told you.
well, me
know,
and
don't
Greg
s-
got our glasses of milk ready. So
Exactly. I mean, dude, you
Or
need
my-
a
or my-
gallon
or
of
my
milk.
or my Diet
There you
Cherry Coke.
There you go. Well, you need
Arnold
a
Palmer.
gallon of milk with a Crumble cookie. It's a meal and a half, you know.
All right.
All right, so let's go to this one. So let me present. This one. I think I like this one because everybody likes to read studies, right? And positive ones at that. So let's make it bigger.
That's what she said.
All right. So sorry again, coming out of the UK, but we tout this all the time. People ask, oh, how do you know it's 95% safer? Well, go read the Royal, College of Physicians, statements. I mean, they still back that statement up to this day. They have not changed their position on that whatsoever. It also lends credence to exactly why vaping is accepted in the United Kingdom. It's a shame that we can't get some people over here to find validity in that. They'd rather say what is starkly opposite than that. This article is a little bit older, but vaping substantially less harmful than smoking. Largest review of its kind finds. New research from the Institute of Psychiatry, Psychology, and Neuroscience. We live in a world of acronyms, and I think I just don't know if I've got the patience anymore. And they use like 2 lowercase letters and then 3 uppercase letters, and now it's starting to seem like that stuff that gamers do when they create their screen names, and it's a big T, little I, big M, little M, big Y, Timmy, right?
Like we say out here, they're churching it up, Tim. They're churching it up.
At King's College London has found that the use of vaping products rather than smoking leads to a substantial reduction in exposure to toxicants that promote cancer, lung disease, and cardiovascular disease. Why do I feel like I live in opposite world? Somebody help me with that one. The independent
world.
we do. We live in bizarro United States. The independent report commissioned by the Office for Health Improvement and Disparities in the Department. Good God. And the Department of Health and Social Care represents the most comprehensive review of the risks of vaping to date. It found that while vaping is not risk-free, particularly for people who have never smoked, it poses a small fraction of the health risks of smoking in the short term to medium term. The report reviewed many aspects of vaping, including who is vaping and what products, the effects on health, both absolute and compared with smoking, and public perceptions of harm. The authors examined studies of biomarkers to exposure, measures of that include measures of potentially harmful substance levels in the body, as well as biomarkers of potential harm, measures of biological changes in the body due to vaping or smoking. The strongest evidence and where there was a greater volume of research came from biomarkers of exposure. And then this is the other argument that we hear, that secondhand vape is dangerous, right?
Dangerous.
An exploration of the available studies found that levels of tobacco-specific nitrosamines, did I say that correct for all you doctors out there? Volatile organic compounds and other toxicants implicated in the main diseases caused by smoking were found at significantly lower levels in vapors. Among vapors, overall levels of nicotine were lower or similar to smokers. But it goes on. Vaping is seeing an increase in vaping is seeing increasing popularity among adults, according to the latest data from the Action on Smoking and Health Smoke-Free Great Britain Adult Survey. Current vaping prevalence is about 8.3% in 2022, compared with 7.1% in 2021 and 6.3% in 2020. So we've seen an increase in interest in vaping. This is exactly what we would want the general public to do. Well, Dean, yeah, I think we've seen some of that stuff come out over time, like in the last year, the last 6 to 8 months. Specifically, their push to ban disposables, And then obviously people who are on the other side of the aisle that don't support this thing. So I'll try to find something a little bit more current. I was trying to find something that was a little bit more upbeat, a little bit more happy, just because we read that stuff.
Because John told them so.
Yeah, the not good stuff. Well, but at the same time, I think we need to show the comparison and contrast, right? Because we could talk about policy and we could talk about bills that are passing or any kind of legislation that these people who I think I would dare to say, you know, I don't think that they want it gone for the sake of the fact that they think that it's just as big a problem that they want to make it out to seem. I feel like they use that as the scapegoat argument for somebody putting some money behind them to fight an agenda, you know, fight for an agenda that, yeah, I could tell a funny story about WTF. But I could save that story for another time. But yeah, I feel like the people that, you know, want to step up and fight this alternative agenda are somehow, you know, clearly backed by a monetary, some monetary leverage, and or, you know, just the idea that they want to cater to the other side in order to keep their position in power or something like that. So I don't know that all of these people that necessarily fight against vaping really believe that it's big of a deal than they make it out to seem. But I do think that we need to continue to address the fact that vaping is helping people, that people are looking to find alternatives to help them quit smoking. And I think this is relative data and information that can be shared with people that surround you or people that might have questions about why you vape. You know, they hear all the bad news and they're like, well, why are you doing that? Don't you know it's worse than smoking? Don't you know it's going to rot your teeth out? And, oh, you're a young man. Why do you want ED? Why do you want to have erectile dysfunction at 24 years old? You know, you're in your prime, sir. You know,
well, you know, I'll tell you what happened here. I know with all these bills we've been facing, and it was Altria bankrolling this. And I'll tell you what happened here in Kentucky. And what changed everything is we had an amendment that would have carved out for open system, would have restricted flavored products to 21 and over stores, you know, the kind of stuff we would want in a federal bill. Right. And actually it had fines for retailers that were enormous for underage sales. And it was like $5,000 for the first offense. Yeah. And that amendment got introduced in the Senate, and it had bipartisan support and was going to pass. And Altria brought in the guy who he was the big money bundler for the Republican Party here in Kentucky to meet with leadership. Altria brought this guy in, and apparently Altria promised these members of the legislature contributions after the session is over. And guess what happened? Yep. The momentum for our amendment dried up almost overnight. Emails stopped being returned, phone calls stopped being answered. Yep. And it was amazing how quickly it happened.
Little backdoor deal.
This is not the only place where they did this. And they did, I know from talking to Nick Orlando, they did the same thing in Florida, where they came in behind the scenes in before some of these committee meetings, and they made certain promises of funding. You know, they've got that kind of money, they can do that. And it's hard for us.
Did we lose Greg?
He started to squelch out there. Yeah, I'm curious about this one, Dean.
What's happened is we finally have hit the bottom line and Wall Street's beginning to take notice. Yeah. We finally hit enough of their sales, and cigarette sales have dropped to an extent that when Wall Street starts taking notice and the investment analysts start taking notice, first off, I never in a million years would have thought that a ragtag group of people like us would get to that point.
Yeah. Well, you would think some of those big time stock investors or would jump on board and see a product that they want to drop tons and tons of money into. That's what I'm kind of surprised too as well. You see the numbers, you see the increase in sales and whatnot. You would think that some hedge fund or some stockbroker or some investment broker would jump on board and just dump
Well,
a couple
yeah,
million, couple billion dollars.
You would think so, but the business model for the vape industry is unlike that of the cigarette industry. Their model is to get you on it, get you addicted, and they've got you hooked for life because it is extremely hard to quit. What's the business model of the vape industry? Step you down and get you off the products. So you're not using the products anymore. And that's the difference.
Yeah. So to Dean's thing, he's saying that they're stopping vape shipments coming into the UK. They're all being held up in customs with what they are now calling paperwork incorrectness or not being right, and more tax to be paid on top. So was this something that was something that changed in the government that caused this particular? I mean, because you would think that the distributors or the importers of those vape products would have to be notified about the duties and the taxes that needed to be paid to get that stuff in, right? So you would think that they would have. I mean, they can't just make a policy change that quick.
Want to bet? Want to bet?
Well, maybe they can. Okay, so all right, very good. But I'm just. You would think that that the distributors or the importers of these products would start talking about it. Like, what is this BS? You're holding up our shipments now, claiming that we owe more tax. Where's this coming from? But that's not right.
And you've got to be real careful though too, because it's a fine edge. You start making a lot of waves, they go, okay, we'll change the rules even more.
Yeah.
True. I mean, I did get stuck in Dubai. I mean, because like over there, I was trying to leave the country, matter of fact. And because I wasn't on the UAE's, I wasn't on one of their airlines. I forget the name of the actual airline. I wasn't taking their particular airline. I was flying on, whatever subsidiary of United or Delta was at that time. They fined me. Basically, they wouldn't let me leave until I gave them money, like on the spot, like basically trying to leave. I got go into this room, and there's this little squirrely guy sitting there behind a desk with like two scimitars behind him mounted on the wall, and then flanking him are these two huge dudes that are like 350 pounds each, and he's like 3,000 dirham, and I'm like, I don't even know what that means. How much? Turned out it was about $350. But in the end, they made me leave security and walk all the way to the front of the airport to go to the money machine so I could get $350 out of the ATM and then walk back to security and pay these people. So I know that they
see. I'm the kind that I would have said F you. I would have ended up getting killed because I would have fought them.
I was gonna say, yeah. As soon as I saw him stand up and remove one of those scimitars from the wall, I would have been like, yeah, maybe "f you" wasn't the right thing to say in that moment. Hold on, I want to read what Dean said. He said, yes and no. It all happened in the last 2 weeks. A few UK vape reviews are waiting for vape gear to be held in UK customs at the moment, but also we have an election next week in the UK. Well, we've known most of the vapes ban won't come until 2025. So this is just another way to milk a cow, right? Because who's going to have to pay that additional tax? Is it going to is it going to have to be the recipient now, the people that are trying to get the products in? Because I think sometimes that happens, right? If there's a variance or discrepancy in the duties and taxes, which most of that's prepaid, you would have to just pay more money to bring it in. So it's the government trying to get money out of people. But this was the thing that I was talking about, which is something that we had addressed on other shows, and that they're trying to ban the disposables for that attract children under 18. I'm not quite sure I know exactly what the age requirement is in the UK to buy. I guess it says it is currently illegal to sell vapes or tobacco to children under 18 in the UK, but officials say that youth vaping has tripled in the past 3 years, and that cheap, colorful, disposable vapes with flavors like bubblegum and candy floss are a key driver.
And guess where the kids in Britain are getting them? The same place the kids in the U.S. are getting them.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
exactly. So it's just how do you shut down the? I mean, now those platforms could remove that stuff.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
Sure.
right? But I
And
mean,
I
so what?
told some legislators when I was down in Alabama recently, meeting with them, and I had color screenshots from dhgate.com, and I says, this is where the kids are getting this stuff from. And as a matter of fact, the Chinese are laughing at us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
That's
you
a
can
good
buy-
question.
You
Well,
can buy
good-
cigarettes at 16 in the UK. Damn.
And that's across the whole entire country, right? That's not just in certain areas like, Swindon or Cirencester or London, or does it vary from town to town, province to province?
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure of that. I'm curious to get the finger on the pulse of this. Like, what's your experience with that, Dean? Do you see a lot of younger kids just hand over fist, just vaping all over the place? I mean, I would be remiss and say that I'm aware of seeing a few kids personally that had them. I'm sure a lot more that I don't see have them, but I just don't see a bunch of kids walking
Yeah, it
down the
says
sidewalk in groups. Yeah.
in England and Wales, the general smoking age is set at 16, while the purchase age is 18. From 1908 till 2007, the purchase
Yeah.
age was aligned with the minimum age to consume such products at 16 years of age. Wow.
Yeah, I was just kind of curious, like,
What's the drinking age there? Damn it, man! If smoking's 16,
12, you can get
12.
you can get hammered at the age of 12 in the UK.
Yeah.
Well,
If you can
and-
look
but-
above the bar, you can buy it.
Right,
well,
right.
I mean, in different, and culture is different in different countries,
Yeah,
and it's
it is.
more widely accepted. Yeah, so he said we have a big problem with kids under 18 vaping disposables. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
I guess it's relevant here. Maybe it's a little bit more of a challenge in the UK, just simply due to the fact that that it's more readily supported, that vaping is supported, so there's more availability. So obviously the kids are the kids are a little bit more inclined to do it as well.
Yeah.
I mean, we had experiences here with the pool, and I tell you, if I had a kid and I found out he was vaping, I would certainly have that conversation about not breaking the law, not vaping because it's not for them and all that stuff. But I would be far more relieved if I found out it was a vape and not a cigarette, or something even worse, But yeah, I'm just curious because I just personally, maybe I live under a rock. Maybe I just don't see enough kids in my day to really be able to judge it properly. But
And
I don't know.
we still have this moral panic about the kids using it. And the
Right.
kids have been vaping for long enough now. And I'm not saying it's a good thing that kids need to vape, but the kids have been vaping for long enough now that if they were going to be converting over to smoking, it would have happened.
Yep. Exactly. And there should be we see the numbers. So it's not, we've seen the new numbers. So obviously it's not forcing anyone to go back to smoking. So, or forcing them into smoking, I should say. I got a quick question for you, Greg. And I was kind of curious on this one, but if you could point out one thing that would have made a difference earlier in the industry, what would it be on our side of it?
I think that if the industry would have organized itself in a NRA kind of advocacy model, we would, and not so much of the quick buck and not caring for the future. That's been the biggest downside here is, and it's why it's always been so hard to raise money for any kind of advocacy effort, is that people say, well, we're going to be gone in 6 months. Well, how many 6-month cycles over the last decade have we seen?
Yeah.
And I've been involved in the industry almost 11 years.
Yeah.
How many 6-month cycles is that? We've gone and we're still here. It's not planning for the future.
Yeah.
It's been the biggest downside. If we would have had an advocacy effort like what we've got, with the NRA, where we would have had a legal defense fund. If you screw with us any place, we're coming after you.
Yeah.
Right.
and lobbyists in every state. We would have had coordinated efforts instead of having just a hodgepodge of effort.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, do you think that had a lot to do with the average age of the of some of the owners during the beginning stages? I mean, a lot of them didn't have a lot of business sense, didn't have a lot of business whatsoever.
Didn't have business savvy, didn't have political savvy, and just didn't have general savvy about a lot of things.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and the fact that you're right. I think if we would have had one single entity that was representing the whole industry, whether you were a vape shop, a website, a manufacturer, a distributor, and representing all parts of the industry, instead of in the beginning we got all broken up. The web people were pissed, or I should say the shops were getting pissed because the websites were getting away with a lot of stuff and being cheaper. Everybody seemed to be fighting each other in the very beginning. Oh, this sounds good, but it's not going to benefit us. Instead of just looking at the whole and saying, hey, we need to save the industry. Let's focus on saving the industry and then work on these other things.
Well, I mean, so many people, and I've seen this time and time again, folks were so urgent to get their products on store shelves that they made bad business deals, pricing that you would have that you didn't have a minimum price. You didn't have it was like the alcohol model where I'm a manufacturer, I make whatever brand, and I then control where that's distributed and where that's retailed.
Right. And
so you had and you were bidding against yourself because you might have your product on a store shelf in a store at $20, and then the same product was on a store shelf down the street at $15.
Yeah.
There was no consistency in pricing,
right.
And that hurt. And you're so afraid that someone was not going to sell their product that they would make deals just to get sales that were bad deals.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's exactly, I think, what happened. I mean, you saw all of us that have been vaping for a long period of time realize that the price structure, how quickly it changed and how quickly bottles got bigger and bigger and bigger. And I think that we were at that point, the wild, wild west. I mean, I think everybody was just trying, exactly like you're saying, to get that little niche.
And the thing is, when did vape shops make the most money? When the vape shops were selling 30s and 60s.
Yeah.
And the reason is, you sell a 30 or a 60, how frequent does your customer have to come in and buy more juice?
Far more often.
Okay, and every time they're coming in, if you're a good store owner, you're upselling batteries, coils, wicks, tanks, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So as you got to the bigger bottles, the 120s, 100s, and 120s, they're coming in less frequently. So you have fewer upsell cycles.
Yep.
And then now with disposables, you don't need any of those other components.
Right. Yeah. It's made a lot of that stuff particularly obsolete, other than us old schoolers who, found devices that, that we enjoyed. But I mean, John and I are not fools to admit the fact that, hey, we kind of found out the disposables are kind of convenient. So, I mean, we're kind of double dipping at the same time. But this is a good question from Michelle. I think we probably answered this ourselves, but from your side, Greg, the question is, what is one thing advocates should tell governors when talking to them?
What I would tell governors is stop looking at this from the revenue side of the losses on the revenue side, the taxes you're losing, the MSA money you're losing. Look at it on what you're saving on the expense side,
right?
Medical expenses, because Medicaid. The people, we talked about this earlier in one of the articles from the UK article. People that are poor smoke at a higher rate of incidence.
Mm-hmm.
That's true.
Those same people also suffer health consequences at a higher incidence. And those are the people who can least afford to be sick.
Right.
Okay. So why don't we promote things that reduce the medical expenses? If the state's having to pay for it through Medicaid or the federal government through Medicaid or Medicare, and the Medicaid people are the ones that are the poor.
Right.
Let's do what we can and look at it from the expense side. And at the end of the day, I did an analysis a number of years ago for Kentucky, and I was talking to a state senator, and they sort of like they shook their head, they couldn't believe it. Here's what you generate every year on master settlement agreement and tax money. Here's what you spend on medical expenses relating to tobacco-related illnesses, and it was like double what they were bringing in.
Yeah. Good point, Greg.
Yep. I mean, it makes all the sense in the world to me. I mean, I think, I'm not saying that, people that sit on the side of the legislative battle are dumb, but I just think that they're ignorant sometimes, and they don't see the world the same way that we do. So a reality check like that,
that, and like Greg was talking about, I mean, these last minute backdoor deals, I mean, it's just ridiculous. You get the sense that you're going to get something passed and through, and then you have some dude show up at midnight, push some buttons, and then walk away and leave, and next thing you know, you got a whole different bill. That's what I don't like.
And I know the bill in Alabama that I'm working with trying to get amended is like 39 pages.
Yeah.
These people haven't read these bills.
They never do, unless it's specifically
a staff member, maybe. A staff member, maybe.
These people don't have staff members.
Oh, they don't. Okay, yeah.
No, they've got legislative staff, but it's very few. They're the ones who do the bill drafting and stuff. They might get a couple paragraph synopsis of what the bill is. Yeah,
right.
And that's what they vote on.
Yeah,
and it's the view they get of this bill is going to be slanted by the bend given on who writes the synopsis.
True.
Yeah, we know that, Dean. We know that. It's the same here. No matter what country you're in, they never listen to the people.
Right. Well, I mean, it's frustrating because you've got a lot of intelligent people who are saying saying the things that are valid, and they just dismiss that, wholeheartedly because they've already made up their mind before the public the public commentary period even begins. I mean, it's almost like you're just letting 100 people walk into a building and talk to a wall because they're down there on their phones, playing Candy Crush while you're fighting for your life.
You had to bring that up.
Well, and like here in Kentucky, I talked about that we had an amendment. The senator who introduced the amendment chairs the transportation committee. Okay, in the Kentucky Senate. And it's a budget year this year. That's the committee that is involved in doling out road projects.
Yeah.
Well, guess how we got support for the amendment? You want a road project? You support the amendment.
Yeah.
Right? It's the same thing. There are people. There are people who will vote for a bill that's anti-vaping because they've been promised something by the bill sponsor. They need this bill sponsor. The bill sponsor, They need the bill sponsor on something else. The bill sponsor says, well, if you want me to vote for this other bill, you're going to vote for my bill.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that should be legislation passed, that bills need to stand on their own and not based on some deal.
Yeah. I think that needs to be voted on.
You're never going to get that.
Of course not, because it's all corruption anyway.
Yeah, and plus that's a lot more work for them, Tim. I mean, they got to get their vacation time in, and sit back and relax and can't wait to collect that millions and millions of dollars of servants' pay that they have accumulated. Right. If you ever want to look that up, guys, you'll be surprised how much of these congressmen are going to walk away with when they retire. That is your hard-earned money.
Yeah.
Thank you for your services. Hey guys, that is it for us. Let me plug something for myself here. Hold on. This dude right here will be joining me tomorrow, and in the Vapor, Jason Vapes will be joining us. Looking forward to getting to know Jason, see what he likes and dislikes. I'm assuming he doesn't want pineapple on pizza.
Better not.
But if he does, Tim, we still love you. but we just kind of,
Yeah.
So yeah, he will be on with me tomorrow at 1:00 on the Zamplebox YouTube channel. I hope to see everybody there. Greg, always a pleasure having you on the show. You are our Tom Hagen of the Wednesday Night Live show, and he actually, like, where he's sitting, that could be a fucking scene from The Godfather. That could be a scene from The Godfather. You look a little bit like Robert Duvall. All right, everybody. Thank you, everybody in chat, for joining us. Always good to see you guys there. We will see everybody next Wednesday, Tim, correct?
Yep, just like Chuck Woolery said, we'll see you in 2 and 2.
See you in 2 and 2.
Yeah.
All right, everybody, wave to the camera.
Everybody.
Bye.